Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, publisher of Modern Health Myths, and today we're going to talk about a topic that we have already addressed multiple times before, but it seems to be rearing its ugly head, and I wanted to get it out there before you happen to see this somewhere else and panic. So, always has to do with the question, if you notice, when everything first started, the idea of you could catch COVID again was this, well, what if we don't really know, we don't know enough, you could catch it again, and there's been people and blah 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 blah. It's like to say that this whole entire thing has been a scenario of Chicken Little would be an understatement. But a lot of those early discussions have been debunked as far as antibody levels dropping down, and that's relatively irrelevant because we retain T-cell immunity. And the idea, well, somebody can catch it again, and they've been, and we found it, and it turns out that it was more likely just to be the infection just never went away, or they were still shedding DNA material, viral material that picked up on the PCR tests, but they weren't actually infected. So we now have not even a handful, one or two cases where somebody has been documented to have a second infection with a different variant of SARS-CoV-2. Now, before you panic, let me describe what had happened. This was a scenario of a gentleman in Hong Kong. He had his first episode. Everything went well. Sounds like it was a typical, it kind of sucked, but he did okay. 142 days later, so what's that, my math is failing me, 4 or 5, not quite 5 months later, he was stopped at an airport screening in Hong Kong. They were doing the actual testing, and he came back positive again. So they ended up putting him in the hospital, which is strange, but maybe that's what they do when they don't know what to do with you. And he remained for the period of 2 weeks or whatever it was, and he was asymptomatic. The only reason he was picked up was at the airport screening. And so, yes, this gentleman tested a second time positive with a slightly different strain of coronavirus. This second episode, he was asymptomatic. The only reason they found it was because he got picked up at an airport screening, not because he became sick. Any virus, anywhere, any bacteria, we can still catch something. If you develop COVID and you have an infection, your body fights it off, and we develop antibodies, and then you decide to take up smoking, drinking, giving up vegetables, watching TV, and foregoing the gym entirely, it is absolutely possible for you to catch something again. We can beat up our immune system to the point where we can catch anything again. And so that's not a terribly big surprise. I don't know what the scenario was in here, but just don't let these news reports scare you. I'm not saying that they will, but Lord knows there's an awful lot of misinformation out there, and I just wanted to get ahead of this one just in case you happen to see it somewhere else. Again, this is one particular case. There's been one or two others, but out of the millions of cases, we now have the percentage needs to be written in scientific notation that it's so small. But again, this is not relevant with COVID-19, with SARS-CoV-2. There is no reason to suggest that we can become ill a second time. Even if we did, even people who have had second episodes from the first or second flare-ups, they all seem to do better. In this particular case, the gentleman was completely asymptomatic, so that would be closer to what we would expect. As always, make sure you like this video, share this with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.